The NFL, like many other sports leagues, is one that is built upon the basis of needing rules, ones that must be followed or fines will be had. However, there are some rules that have been put in that, if broken, will result in suspensions, some of which can last the whole season. Now, of course, some of those are rare, but they have happened a lot more than you may think in the NFL. So allow us to show you some players that were banned from the NFL. Be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel.
Just a reminder about our new giveaway. We're giving away the new iPad Pro or the new iMac Pro. The choice is yours. All you have to do is watch the full video, leave a like, comment the keyword hidden in the video, and make sure you're subscribed. It's that simple.
Number 10, Myles Garrett. Let's start off with one that happened very recently, as in the previous NFL season recently. It's well known that division games are very deep and personal because it's not just another team. It's a team that is honestly trying to beat you in order to go to the playoffs within your own section of the league. Many teams hate one another in their divisions because it can be so hard to get to the top of the division. The Steelers and the Browns are one such duo that don't have the best feelings towards one another. And in one match last year, Browns player Myles Garrett had an intense play against Steeler Mason Rudolph. And when he did, he ripped the helmet off of Mason's head, which was not quite a penalty. But when Mason came up and started shouting in his ear and Garrett whacked him with his own helmet in anger, yeah, that is a big no-no, and it got so bad that Garrett was given an indefinite suspension until his crimes could be properly weighed, and then a proper suspension handed out. It's very rare that something like this happens for on-the-field conduct, and to be clear, his suspension was eventually given a numerical amount, and he's playing with the Browns this year and doing quite well. But that scene of him hitting Rudolph with a helmet is one that NFL wishes they could forget. Number 9, Paul Hornung and Alex Karras. Paul Hornung and Alex Karras were two of the biggest stars in the NFL in the early 60s. The Packers and Lions stars were found to have bet on NFL games, and that earned them a year-long suspension for the 1963 season. Now, at first, that might seem a bit harsh for gambling, but remember, both then and now, sports gambling has been seen as a huge violation for players to be doing. After all, if they're betting on themselves, then that means they could alter the game to better suit their bets, and thus make more money and so on. And so for two players, let alone major stars, to be betting on games back then, yeah, that was bad. And if you jump to baseball, never forget what they did to Pete Rose. He's still not in the Hall of Fame because of his gambling. So yeah, gambling, it's a big deal in sports. Number 8, Mike Riley. Mike Riley was a Rams 8th round pick out of Oklahoma in 1982. He wound up suspended for the entire 1983 season after being convicted of vehicular manslaughter and the death of 17-year-old Zachary Thomas of Chino, California. Riley accepted a 1-year sentence at a minimum security jail facility in Orange, a sentence that allowed him to practice but not play for the Rams. He made a financial settlement with the victim's family. Now, if this sounds like a familiar thing, then you likely know about a certain other NFL player whose off-the-field actions caused quite a big stir. Number 7, Ray Rice. This one is tricky to talk about because technically Ray Rice had two different punishments handed upon him after the horrifying incident that happened back in 2014. Long story short, while having an argument with his soon-to-be wife, the two got into a physical altercation that led to Rice knocking his partner out. Quite brutally, might we add. When first reports came out, the NFL only did a fine and a 2-game suspension, which obviously blew up the media world because Ray Rice was a star running back for the Baltimore Ravens, and it was seen as favoritism to the stars because they made the NFL money. But when elevator camera footage came out about the incident, everything changed, because it wasn't about the various star power anymore. It was about a man hitting a woman. The Ravens, after seeing the footage, immediately released Ray Rice from his contract, no excuses. Then the NFL followed up this action by suspending him indefinitely from the league. This got a lot more praise, though it was also noted that it should have been the first punishment and not the second, either way that it went down. And not unlike Myles Garrett, his suspension was lifted. It didn't help because his stain was just too much. And speaking of long-lasting marks, number 6, Michael Vick. Here's another one that is quite tricky, because as a certain 30 for 30 will tell you, Michael Vick had basically two phases in his NFL career. one that was before prison and one that was after prison. Now, you all know the story more than likely. Michael Vick was one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL with the Atlanta Falcons, but his personal life with his friends wasn't the best, and they eventually got caught having a dogfighting ring that led to Vick being released from the Falcons, suspended from the NFL, and going to jail. When he got out of jail, many people wondered if the NFL would let him back in. And that 30 for 30 we mentioned? Commissioner Roger Goodell noted that Vick had to convince him to let him back in the league because of the stain of what he did affected the league in various ways, and they didn't just want to let him back in. They needed to know that he was going to be a different man. Vick proved his intent and his desire to atone, so Goodell let him back in the league, and the rest is history. But for a time, you could honestly say Vick was truly banned from the NFL. Number 5, Art Schlichter. Art Schlichter found his way into trouble over and over again. Gambling and abuse issues plagued the former local hero from Ohio State after the Colts drafted him in the first round. He was suspended indefinitely in 1983 for betting on NFL games and other sports events and then reinstated the next year. These were just the beginning of troubled times for the quarterback. Despite what people want you to believe, there is a dark side to the NFL, and stories like these are great examples of it. You wouldn't expect these stars to have things like this happen, and yet they happen way more than they should. Number 4, Jeff George. Jeff George was around the league a lot. Once considered a phenom, he became a journeyman. In 1996, he was suspended for the entire season due to a violation of the league's personal conduct policy, stemming from an argument during a game with Falcons head coach June Jones. Here's another example of how not controlling your personality can lead to a whole world of trouble and pain. And don't worry, he wasn't the only one who had anger issues on the field. Number 3, Albert Haynesworth. Titans defensive lineman Albert Haynesworth earned himself a 5-game suspension after stomping on the head of Dallas Cowboys center Andre Garrett during a game in 2006. Yeah, that was not a great day for the NFL either. Granted, sometimes you can step on someone in a game without meaning to, but it was clear that Albert here was going for the head and wanted to punish his foe. But just as bad is that he had these kinds of issues all the time, and if he was just able to keep his cool, he would have been an all-time great more than likely. But instead, he was a liability. Number 2, Adam Jones. Adam Jones found trouble frequently during his NFL career. He missed the entire 2007 season for his involvement in an incident in Las Vegas that saw him attack a stripper and threaten a security guard's life. Yeah, that wasn't cool, and he had other incidents as well that led him to being in all sorts of trouble throughout his NFL career. Just when you thought he was on the straight and narrow, he'd go and do something else stupid. Number 1, Rae Carruth. The Panthers' Rae Carruth was banned indefinitely in 1999 after he was charged and found guilty of conspiracy to commit murder, using an instrument with intent to destroy an unborn child, and discharging a firearm into occupied property in the shooting near Carruth's Charlotte home on November 16, 1999 that led to the death of Cherika Adams. Carruth was convicted of the crime in 2001 and served in prison until 2019. Like we said, there is a dark side to sports that sometimes doesn't want to get talked about, but you need to talk about it, or else no one will learn anything. So what do you think? What do you think of this look at the NFL and the players who broke the rules so badly that they got suspended for a long time? Were you surprised by some of the suspensions that got handed down and the amount they were for? Which of these did you find the most shocking? Do you know of any other NFL player who was given a very long suspension? Let us know in the comments below. Be sure to subscribe, and we'll see you next time on the channel.
Just a reminder about our new giveaway. We're giving away the new iPad Pro or the new iMac Pro. The choice is yours. All you have to do is watch the full video, leave a like, comment the keyword hidden in the video, and make sure you're subscribed. It's that simple.